If you've clicked on this video, I can only assume it's because you want a huge deadlift, and I'm here to help. Now, today I'm going to be showing you the technique and the cues that I use to build over a 900-pound deadlift for myself and over 400 pounds here for this lovely lady. Now, that's quite strong. If you want to be strong too, if you want a massive deadlift, then make sure you watch this video. I guarantee you it's going to help. Let's get it. Really focus on making sure that we are in the perfect position at the midpoint, because if you are, lockout is going to be so much easier. And that is what is key here. Okay, that's what we're trying to get through. We're trying to make that lockout as easy and efficient as we possibly can, and it won't happen unless you've done all this other stuff first. Now, we want to retract our shoulder blades for the squats. We want to retract them on the bench press as well. What we don't want to do is retract them on the deadlift. The bracing is completely different. When we pull our shoulder blades back together, we shorten our arms, we create a disadvantage, and we create a higher risk of injury. And welcome back to your mum's favorite channel on YouTube, Cult Strength. It is an extremely special day today. Today, I'm gonna help you get a massive deadlift. That's what's happening. Now, it's not clickbait. I genuinely mean that if you can, learn from today's tutorial, I guarantee you that you are immediately gonna have a stronger deadlift. Okay, there's nothing magical about it. There's no magic pill. It's not a shortcut. This is about using the exact technique that I used to build over a 900-pound deadlift. And this one here, she used to be really strong as well. You pulled over 400 pounds, 185 kilos, and you're only little. But using the techniques that I've been using, that I've been coaching, you managed to be quite strong, didn't you?
Yes.
It's pretty impressive, pretty impressive. So today, Kaylee here is going to be showing you the demonstrations while I'll talk you through it. We're going to go over this in a few different sections because I think that that's the best way to approach the deadlift. We like to break it down into little parts so you really understand what I'm trying to tell you, what I'm trying to show you. Now, most of you, if you've been here for a while, you would know that deadlifting is my absolute favorite lift. It's always my favorite day of the week. And I'm actually currently under 2 weeks out of competition, a deadlift only competition. So, I'm really loving deadlifts at the moment, so I wanted to deliver this tutorial to you today because it's been a little while since we've done a deadlift tutorial. Now, I had a lot of great feedback off the last one that I did, but today I really want to, kind of touch on all of those things again, plus also add some new valuable information, which I really think is going to benefit you. Now, the best way to teach the deadlift is to break it down into 2 parts, okay? You've got the initiation of the lift, which is what I like to call the push, and then we have the pull, where we squeeze our hips through to the bar to finish the lockout. Now, a lot of people are under the assumption that the deadlift is a pull-only movement, but it is definitely not, okay? To perform the deadlift the correct way, it is a push and a pull. And that's what we're really going to be elaborating on today, so you can understand that, so you can take it away. And when you do, I guarantee you're going to be adding weight to your deadlift immediately. But we're going to get started now. Hope you enjoy this. Make sure you like this video, you drop a comment and subscribe. What do you reckon? Good idea?
It's a very good idea.
Let's do it. All right, now we're going to get started with this tutorial. Now, first things first, okay? It's going to be our setup. What are we doing before we actually grab the barbell? Because we have to have a purpose and we have to know exactly what we're trying to achieve, okay? This is where we're starting our success for that set. You got to start with the little things. You got to start with that routine and make sure everything's perfect before we decide to grab the bar, okay? We have to make sure everything is set in place, everything is anchored in. So what I want her to do, so step back for me. Let's pretend you're walking up to the bar, okay? So you're going to step up to the bar. Now, how wide should we have our feet? Now, for me, what I love to teach, what I love to do, is to be as compact as you can, okay? So bring your feet in to around hip width. So her feet are directly underneath her hips. Now, there's a nuance to this, okay? If you have a bigger stomach, you may struggle to actually stand that close, okay? If that's you, that's fine. Stand a little bit wider, but understand that the ideal deadlift position for the feet is directly under your hips, okay? So she stepped up to the bar, feet are hip width apart. Now, how far away from the bar should we stand? The bar should be roughly over your midfoot, okay? We have to leave room for our knees to go forward over the bar, meaning that our shins are gonna move towards the bar. If we start too close to the barbell, we're gonna push the barbell away as we go to grab it. We don't want that. If it's too far away, we're gonna be starting the movement with the barbell away from our center of gravity, which is of course gonna make it harder. So what we wanna do is make sure the barbell is roughly over the midfoot, but we'll make a small adjustment later on before we start the lift if we need to. Now, once her feet are there, what she's gonna be doing here is setting the anchor. This is one of the most important parts of the deadlift, and it starts with the feet. Often very overlooked, but if you start to utilize this with your deadlifts, even your squats, okay, the grounding is extremely important. So how are we gonna achieve this? What she's gonna do here is she's gonna be standing there, obviously. I've got her shoes off today because I believe if you can train with bare feet, that's absolutely the best case scenario. We wanna be able to feel the ground the best that we can. If you aren't able to use bare feet in the gym that you're in, try to use the thinnest sole shoe you possibly can, something really firm, nothing spongy, no runners, no joggers. Try to keep it really thin, really firm, or barefoot if possible. So she's standing. Now what she's gonna do, she's gonna dig her big toe into the ground, okay, as hard as she can. Now she's also pushing her other toes into the ground as hard as she can. Equal weight displacement over the entire foot from front to back, but the big toe is the anchor. So what she's gonna do, once that big toe is set into the ground, she's gonna externally rotate, okay? She's gonna stick her toe into the ground and externally rotate outwards, okay? She's rotating outwards, but because she's pushing that big toe into the ground, her feet aren't moving, but what she's doing is creating tension, external rotation. When you do that, you will immediately feel your quadriceps and your glutes already start to switch on. That's the first step, okay? So make sure everything's locked in here. You've got the anchor in. Now, before we grab the bar, what's really important is to set the brace with the lats. Now, you can set the brace with the lats at the bottom, but let's just say that you're not a pro, you haven't been doing this for 10 years, and you wanna find the best way to efficiently do it. This is how it's gonna be. As she's standing here, her feet are locked in, her hands, she's gonna have them slightly in front of her, okay? Just slightly against your legs. Now, when your palms are on your thighs, push your fingertips to the floor as hard as you can, okay? And at the same time, squeeze the lats a little bit harder because you're immediately gonna feel them come on. When you push your fingertips down, squeeze your lats and flex your upper chest a little bit, okay? Flex this a little bit. You're gonna be nice and rigid through this area here, braced, which is what we want. She set the brace, she set her anchor. Now, what she's gonna do is reach down and grab the barbell. Now, where on the barbell should we be grabbing? We need to be grabbing, again, as compact as we possibly can. As you can see, we're gonna use our legs as a guide. We still need to have enough room to be able to get our knees through the window. Okay, I call this a window. You stand up for a second. So we wanna make sure when we go down that our hands aren't too close, that it starts to interfere with your positioning, but we don't want them so wide as that you're not compact and not tight. So hands just outside of arms with a little bit of room, because I'll explain why in a moment. So reach down, grab the barbell. Okay, now there's a little bit of room there. So what I want you to do in this position here, okay, now keep in mind, we want to make sure we maintain that tension in the lats, the anchor's in. Now you're gonna push your knees through the window, a little window between her elbows, right? So knees forward a little bit. This is why we had to leave a little bit of space for our shins. Now we're gonna slightly push our knees out to the side, externally rotate very slightly, because we've got that anchor there, we've got that tension we're creating. We're gonna create a little bit more tension now by just pushing the knees out slightly so they're just touching the insides of the arms. We don't want to push against them so hard that your arms start to bend, but we want a little bit of contact. Okay, now you're set nice and tight. So we have the anchor in here, we have the brace in here, and now we have the glutes and the hips activated, ready to initiate the movement, okay? This is the setup, and to further this, what we want to do is elongate as much as possible. So crown of the head, imagine someone's got your ponytail, pulling it up a little bit to the top of the ceiling. We're nice and long, triceps are flexed, and there's no slack in the bar. So take the slack. Cool, so everything's nice and long, nice and flexed, stand up. No, not with the bar. There we go, that must have been exhausting though, holding that position for so long. But that's the setup, that's what we're gonna do before the lift. Now that may seem like a lot, okay, but we've got to understand that what we do before we lift the weights sets us up for the result when we actually do the lift, right? If this setup here is sloppy, you can't expect for the lift to go well, especially when we're trying to perform at a higher level, trying to move a lot of weight. We need to make sure everything is on point. So that's the setup. Now we're going to tackle the initiation of the deadlift, part one of the actual movement. Let's go. All right, now we're going to go over the initiation of the actual deadlift. So Kaylee, you're going to go through the setup again. So big toe in the ground, spread the floor, lats on, pushing the fingertips down, grabbing the bar just outside of your hands. Okay, now top of the head to the ceiling, knees slightly out. Okay, now what we have to understand, right, is from this position to initiate the movement, we need to think of this as somewhat of a leg press, okay? The cue that I like to use is to push the world away. We want to utilize the quadriceps. Now, how are we going to do that? As you can see here from her position, her knees are pushing forward over the bar, okay? Now take a moment for me. What I want you to do is just straighten your shins and get into that position. Now, even further, that's not straight. Okay, it feels really, really bad, right? Now that's right. So a lot of people try to deadlift with a straight shin. Now what happens here, we cannot generate any leg drive. We cannot use our quads. So what we want to do is push our knees forward, so there's flexion, okay? Flexion is going to allow us to push. So when we initiate the movement, once everything here is locked in nice and tight, we want to think about pushing the world away to start standing up. Don't think pull, okay? If we think to just pull from the floor, what will happen is, for most people, straighten your shins, you're going to start to pull from this position here, which is essentially somewhat of a stiff-legged deadlift, because you're only going to be using your posterior chain. You can stand up for a moment. If you're doing that right, if you're straightening your shins before you go to initiate the movement, you are taking the quadriceps out of the movement. They're an extremely strong muscle and essential in a big deadlift. You watch any of the best conventional deadlifters, they are using their quadriceps to initiate the movement. It's the only way they can move so much weight, okay? Take the quadriceps out, you're doing a stiff-legged deadlift. Sure, there's a lot of people that can pull a lot from a stiff-legged position with extremely strong posterior chains, but they can lift more with their quadriceps. So why not use them effectively? That's the point of this, okay? So right now, Kaylee's gonna do 3 repetitions. She's gonna focus on the cues that we've gone through so far, so the setup. Now, I'm not gonna give her any cues yet for once we've come off the ground, okay? We're gonna go over that next. But I want you to see 3 repetitions of what it looks like to start from the perfect position and then to initiate the movement with that push, all right? 3 repetitions, you can do this. So, big toes in the ground, spread the floor, lats are on, top of the head to the ceiling, knees out, they're over the bar, and we're gonna push, stand up, lovely, and down, everything nice and tight, knees out, push, good, excellent, chest, shoulders over the bar, push, lovely. Excellent repetitions, okay, now she is initiating the movement with the push, with the quadriceps. Now, there's a marker, okay, that I like to use when it comes to deadlifting and the technique and being efficient, and that is the midpoint of the lift, okay? So for me, I like to refer to that as just below the knees. Now, once that barbell is passing the midpoint, What we want to make sure of, and if we've done this correctly, is that our chest and shoulders are over the barbell. Now, what do I mean by that? If you hop out of the way for a second. I'm going to quickly just demonstrate this, okay? Now, when we do this, we want our chest and shoulders over the bar. So when I'm at the midpoint, we sit here, okay? What we want to avoid in all situations is pulling our chest up. That is why I have not used the cue chest up for the deadlift once today, have I? And do I ever use the cue chest up for deadlifts? No, because what happens, right, when we use the cue chest up is we pull our chest up, which means that we retract our shoulder blades. Now we want to retract our shoulder blades for the squats. We want to retract them on the bench press as well. What we don't want to do is retract them on the deadlift. The bracing is completely different. When we pull our shoulder blades back together, we shorten our arms, we create a disadvantage, and we create a higher risk of injury. So we want to focus on protraction of the shoulder blades, meaning that when we're pushing our fingertips to the floor, we're protracting our shoulder blades. That's what's happening. We're pushing our shoulder blades outside of the pocket, right? We're not squeezing them in, pushing them down, okay? That's what we want to achieve. We don't want to pull the chest up. When we start to pull the chest up in a movement, we get behind the bar and our chest and shoulders are no longer over the bar, which will greatly affect our lockout, which we'll go over more soon. We want chest, shoulders over the bar. So when we push from here. Okay, my chest and shoulder position hasn't changed yet, nor should it, okay? I am not like this. This is chest up, okay? Extremely off balance and extremely inefficient. Okay, so Kaylee, jump back on the barbell for me. So again, as she does this now, we're gonna add that extra layer, right? I want you to pay attention to the position of her chest and shoulders at the midpoint. I'm not saying look at her chest, I'm saying check the position of her chest and shoulders at the midpoint. Behave yourselves. Okay, so big toes in the ground, checklist every single time, checklist, go over it in your head. Big toes in the ground, tension, spread the floor, fingertips to the floor, lats are on, squeezing chest, squeezing the lats. All right, keeping tension, reach down, grab the barbell just outside of your legs, keeping tension on. Now you push your knees forward over the bar, slightly out to the side, top of the head to the ceiling, nice and long, push, chest and shoulders over the bar at the midpoint, lovely, reset, tight, push, chest and shoulders over the bar at the midpoint, lovely, and again, chest and shoulders over the bar at the midpoint, perfect. Excellent execution of the deadlift, and as you can see, I've given her no cues for what to do after that push, and as long as she's got her chest and shoulders over the bar at the midpoint, there is zero issues with your lockout, which makes sense because we're maintaining the perfect position off the floor. Now, one of the biggest reasons people miss their deadlift right at lockout is actually because they've lost their position off the floor, their chest and shoulders weren't over the bar at the midpoint, and it actually has nothing to do with a weakness, okay? Everybody is stronger from this point to this point than they are from down here, okay? It's not a weakness, it's the fact that they lose position and they don't have their chest and shoulders over the bar. They start to pull their chest up, which means they push their knees forward to compensate, and they start having to ramp it or hitch it, right? Like this, and it gets stuck and they can't get the hips through. We want to avoid that, so we avoid that by keeping our chest and shoulders over the barbell. We're pushing like this, squeezing through, okay? That's the first part of the deadlift. Now we're gonna do the end of the lift. How do we finish off this lift in the most efficient way possible? That's what we're gonna do next. If you've enjoyed this, if you've learned something so far, like this video, drop a comment and
Subscribe.
And subscribe. Do a dance. Yeah, buddy. All right, baby. Now, so far we have covered the setup, what we're doing before we actually put our hands on the bar. We've discussed what we're doing with the initiation of the movement, and we now have to discuss, finishing the lift. Now, we're also going to touch on, after we do this, equipment, okay, like belts, straps, shoes, some things like that. We'll touch on some nuances as well. Things that are definitely going to help you, things that are definitely tools and can be used as tools to help you build a big deadlift. But right now, we're going to finish this off with the execution, the lockout, right? Now, it should be really simple. The lockout, if you've done everything so far, this is the most simple part of the lift. Yes, it can be difficult, don't get me wrong, but in reality, if we've done everything right so far, this is a simple matter of squeezing the hips through, okay, to finish. Now, to demonstrate this, Kaylee is going to perform some paused deadlifts. Now, this is my favorite deadlift variation to use in training when it comes to refining the deadlift. We break it down into the two parts that they are. Okay, so for demonstration's sake, you're going to actually see that transition at the midpoint. You're going to see the push and then the pull. But in training, what this will allow us to do is really focus on making sure that we are in the perfect position at the midpoint, because if you are, lockout is going to be so much easier. And that is what is key here. Okay, that's what we're trying to get through. We're trying to make that lockout as easy and efficient as we possibly can, and it won't happen unless you've done all this other stuff first, okay? So I know it's quite technical, it's a simple movement, but when we're trying to perform at a high level, we have to take everything seriously. The big things, the little things, we put them together, and that's how you get elite, okay? There's a lot of good lifters out there that don't pay attention to everything. They're strong, but they're not elite, and they could be. And that's a fact. All right, big butt. Now, step up to the bar for me. All right, what's our setup? You're gonna tell me, what are we doing first? What are we doing?
Bars at mid.
Midfoot. What are we doing with our toes?
Big toe in the floor.
Big toe in the floor. What are we doing with it? Spreading the floor, perfect. Then we're doing with the lats in the hands. What are we doing there?
Fingers to the ground.
Fingers to the ground, lats on, upper chest. Perfect. And then we're gonna reach down. Where are we gonna grab the bar?
Just outside of
The legs, just outside of the legs. Perfect. Now from this position, we're getting nice and long. Okay, knees slightly out, knees over the bar, because we're going to initiate with the push. Now you're going to pause at the midpoint, and when she pauses, what she's simply doing from the pause point is pulling the hips through like an RDL almost. Boom, hips through to the bar. Squeeze your hips, lock your quads. So we want to make sure from here, force your knees locked, and then hips through. Your knees will lock just before your hips. It's not exactly at the same time. Ideally, we want to force the knees locked, squeeze the hips through, okay? 3 repetitions, a little pause, the push, pull, yes. And again, force the knees locked, push, pull, yes. One more, knees out, push, pull. Lovely. Excellent demonstration. Now, that's the thing, right? It's like one of the quickest ways to get the barbell to lock out is to simply think about pushing your knees until they lock, okay? So we're from here, right? We come from the ground, we push. Let me step in the bar here for a second. I'm gonna show you guys for a moment. Hopefully I'm not cut out in the camera. Apologies if my head gets cut out here. But we're from this position, okay? Knees are bent, obviously. We stand up. From here, I'm forcing my knees locked as fast as I can. Locked, my knees are locked, my hips aren't through yet. Now they are. That's the little difference, okay? Knees lock, hips through, shoulders back, nice and tall. Squeezing the glutes, flexing the quads, everything is upright. Everything is hard. You know what I'm saying? You love it. That's the deadlift. Pretty simple, right? Was that pretty good? I want you to give me 3 repetitions, no pause. I'm not going to cue you. I want to see you do 3 perfect deadlifts to see if this worked. Let's go. It's been a while since you've done some serious deadlifts, right? How long? Years. At least 3 years she's done serious deadlifts. So this is pretty damn good. And you built a lot of this with them originally, right? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was like, I get to create this little masterpiece. Let's go. 3 reps. Look at that. Yes. Look at the chest and shoulders over the bar. Look at that. I'm looking at the chest, but you should look at the shoulders. Yes. Great chest. I mean, great set. Awesome work. Good job. I mean, good job. That's how you deadlift. That's how you deadlift. And you know, me, as I said, my best deadlift ever, 410 kilos, 903 pounds. I'm currently working towards something heavier. Her best deadlift, over 400 pounds. For a little girl. How small are you? Come here. Stand on the flat ground. Big difference. Strong girl, right? So, if you want a big deadlift, that's all you have to do. It's not that fucking hard. Now hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification button so you're notified every single time I post. Should they do that?
Yes.
Absolutely they should. Because it's your mum's favorite channel on YouTube. You're a mum. Is it your favorite channel on YouTube?
Sure.
Oh yeah, boy. Let's go. All right, baby. So that wraps up the deadlift portion of this video. Now, quickly before we wrap it up, I wanted to touch on equipment, okay? Now, what equipment should you use, can you use? You can use or not use anything that you wish to use or not use. It's as simple as that. There are things that we can use that are tools that are absolutely allowed and that most people will utilize. There are pros to them, there are cons to them, but at the end of the day, it depends on what your goal is. When it comes to a belt, okay, a belt is an excellent way to allow us to potentially lift more weight. They don't magically allow us to lift more weight, but what a belt will do is allow you to use your core muscles more effectively to create a bigger, harder brace, which can in turn prevent you from getting injured as well, okay? So a belt is up to you. There's many options, but I like a powerlifting lever belt in 13 millimeter, but most people would probably be fine with a 10 millimeter. It's a little bit thinner, but I'm over 140 kilograms, so having a big thick belt makes a little more sense for me. Whereas if Kaylee was using a belt, she would use a 10 millimeter at most. Sometimes you can even find 8 millimeter belts, which are more suitable for smaller individuals because they're less bulky and they're a little less stiff, and that definitely helps if you're a bit smaller. We also, footwear, as I stated earlier, that's really important. What are some shoes that you could wear if you need to? Boxing boots, a really flat boxing shoe is fantastic. Wrestling shoes, things like that. If you don't have the budget for that, or maybe you have some old Converse laying around, but they're a bit spongy, but if you take the soles out, sometimes they're a little bit better. Not ideal, like Vans and Converse, not ideal, but probably the best option for just a shoe that most people have access to, but not as good as a wrestling shoe, or there's even deadlift slippers, of course, but again, it's up to you. I like barefoot. I just recommend that you don't do your strength training in a jogger, in something that's thick and soft, because what our feet are trying to do naturally is search for hard ground. When we can't find hard ground, we don't have stability. It's affecting your stability and your power output and transfer into the bar. So that will make a huge difference. And again, there's things like shin sleeves. Kaylee had on shin sleeves today because I don't like people to avoid their shins when they deadlift. They need to keep that bar nice and close. It should be grazing the shins as it comes up, not dragging up the shins, but grazing the shins. And if you graze your shins enough with a barbell, you will take skin off, you'll start to get calcification, you'll start to get a big lump in your shin, which isn't pretty and doesn't feel nice, and it can affect your deadlift technique because we tend to avoid that part of the shin. So what we want to do is put a little sleeve on the shin that will stop our shin getting all fucked up and will allow us to continue to use excellent technique. And of course there's straps, and everyone says you shouldn't use straps, but I say, shut up, say it to my face, because unless you have a powerlifting competition coming up, we don't need to use our bare hands. It's great to use bare hands, I do that often as well. I have no issues with grip. If you have grip issues and you want better grip, then don't use straps. If you don't care, then just use straps. We're talking about how do we deadlift the most weight here, right? Straps can definitely help with that. Strong men use straps in competition, powerlifters don't. Different rules, but it is what it is. Is there anything else that you think you could add to that or to this conversation, apart from your extremely good looks?
No, No, you covered it all.
Covered it all?
Covered it all.
She's actually really clever, but just has a hard time expressing it with words sometimes.
I'm a bit shy.
Yeah, a little bit shy. Keep in mind, I have a brand new deadlift program coming out in just under 2 weeks. The day after my competition, a new deadlift program is arriving. That'll be the program that I'm basing my training off for my prep or my training cycle towards achieving a 1,000-pound deadlift in a suit. And we've got some competitions lined up for next year that I'm going to be attending, hopefully. So, you know, that training program is going to tie in with my training as well. And there's also going to be a bench press program coming out really soon. But I do have a whole other bunch of programs on my website right now. Single lift, 3 lift, power building, you name it. The best programs in the universe. Fact, right?
Fact.
Cannot deny it. Best programs in the universe. You may have the best program in the world, sir. You need to think bigger. You need to get the biggest and the best program in the universe. And you're going to find that at cultstrength.square.site. Have some limited merch coming out really soon. And I'm going to be bringing out more educational content as well. We're going to be doing some more tutorials, a squat tutorial, a bench press tutorial, and I will most likely have my beautiful assistant here helping me with those again. I appreciate your help. I'm sure everyone here appreciates your help. You know, the key here is you're still watching this video. It's not because of me. I'm smart. I know that I have the information, I have the knowledge, and I know it's going to help you. But my thing is like, how can I get these people with low attention spans to sit through an entire video and take it all in? That's the answer. You bring something pretty to look at, you're switched on, you're focused, you're zoned in, even though you may not think you're listening. Subconsciously, you absorbed it all because you were so invested and so present in the actual moment. When you go to deadlift, you're going to be fine. Or you can just watch it back again. You can just watch it back again. Male psychology. Exactly. I'm a businessman. I'm a smart man. You know what I'm saying? But that's it from me. That's it from me. Make sure, again, if you haven't yet, fucking hit subscribe, hit like, drop a comment. Tell me about your day. I just like the engagement. We're trying to grow this channel big. We're up to nearly 27,000 subs now, but I want 50, I want 100,000. You know what I'm saying? Until next time, where do they go?
To the gym.
To the
fucking gym.
You shouldn't swear. To the fucking gym. No swearing. Go and do it.